Okay, what else? About philosophers, what else?
About the life of each philosopher.
Pero wala natapos.
Okay, sige. Tanaw na nato, be. Manawag daw ta. John Mark, what you remember about yesterday's discussion? No, wala si John Mark.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. Joseph, do you still remember or what you remember yesterday's discussion?
I know.
Anything, Joseph?
Yes, sir.
Yes, what?
About the self-society and culture.
Okay, self, society, and culture. Okay. Michelle Macaso. Asa man imong nadumduman about yesterday's discussion? Yes.
Self.
About self. Okay. About self. What else? Okay, so yesterday we talk about the different ideas, the different concepts of the different philosophers. No, we talk about their contribution in the field of the study of the self. We also mentioned in the latter part the contribution of other thinkers, Gilbert, Ryle, Moose, about the understanding of the self in the perspective of psychology and sociology. Your classmate mentioned about self, mentioned about personality, identity. They're all the same, only termed differently by different thinkers and scholars who contributed in the field of the study of the self. So this evening, we'll continue with the discussion that we left yesterday. This is all about the self, society, and culture. Okay, so let us see the material. Okay, nakita na ang material, people. Nakita na?
Wala pa, sir.
Meron.
Tama, sir.
Okay na, sir.
Okay na, ni anak.
Wala man ang signal, sir.
Lagi, hinay ang signal, no? Sige lang. Kantong,
sir.
Isa wifi ra ko, sir.
Naon sa top?
wifi.
Lagi
Wala akong signal.
wala ang signal. Usbo na to ha. Para sige. Nagyo na to na mausap ng signal kay mo nagyo na ang signal, no?
Sir.
Ato lang ang yun si Batman nga tagaan tag taas nga signal. Okay, sige. So yesterday, I do not know if you're able to start it, no, the self, society, and culture. So here we'll be talking about how the society influenced the development of the self. Now, in the society, also consider that we have our culture in the society. And because the society is so dynamic, there are several individuals in the society, or let's say different self in the society. So therefore, there are several culture in the society. So the dynamics of these differences and its uniqueness influence the development of the self. So let us look at how the society and culture shaped the self, particularly the self when the individual is still young, no, still young, bata pa. Because this is more crucial for young people because they will adopt it as their own. They will own it as if that they understood it. But of course, some cases, wala na sila kasabot, ila na i-adapt. Okay? Sige. Okay? So we have here, self according to contemporary literature. The common sense separates self-contained and independent, consistent, unitary, and private. So this particular statement very clear that our self is separate because we have our own different bodies. Now, the self has a particular physical body. So therefore, we are separated in that sense. Even mentally, we think differently. Even if we are close, even if we are in relation, we think differently. Feelings, for example, is also an indicator that we are separated because we feel differently. Maybe there are some cases that we felt more or less the same, but not exactly the same. There will be only some elements of similarities, but not 100%. Okay, self-contained, self-contained since we have our own knowledge, no, because of our own experience. This is what our the philosophers and the thinkers are telling us, that because of our own experiences we have our own definitely our own understanding of situations in the world, because our experiences becomes the source of our knowledge. So because of that, we are self-contained because our self knowledge becomes our source of information. That is why we can explain, that is why we can like, we can dislike, because we have already the knowledge based on our experience. Now, independent in the sense that the self would like to be free. I do not know if you agree with me, but uh, you may not agree with me, but majority of the people all over the world would like to be free. To be free from what? Now, there are some reasons that people are fighting for independence. No? They want to be independent in one way or another. Now, look at our own selves. We want to be independent from the influence of our family, for example. We want to be enjoying. No? We want to be free and enjoying our choices in life, our likes in life. So this is what we are. Ourself is very independent from one self to another. We don't want others to control us. As much as possible, we must be carefree and uh, enjoying the freedom. Okay, consistent. We are consistent in the sense that if we dream, we are sacrificing a lot to make the dream come true. For example, in your case, you're still building your career. For example, you want to become this in the future. You want to achieve this in the future. That is why you are doing things. You are studying. You are working. You are sacrificing, and so much so sometimes you are exposing yourself to different experiences in order to achieve really the things you want to achieve in the future. Okay, unitary and private. uh, Even if those I mentioned, still we are private individual. We are unitary and privates in the sense that there are some parts in our lives that we would like to keep it in our own. Ah, ato siyang i-keep as if personal nato siya nga uh, part of our self, part of our identity that others should not know it. So we are private. So this is the general, not the general concept of the self in the society that is struggling in the influence of the different culture or the dynamics of the different uh, relationship in within the context of the society. Okay, next, self and culture. According to Marcel and Moos, self has two phases, persone and moi. Okay. Persone means social concept, moi means basic identity. When we say social concept, this is referring to our affiliation to a particular group. For example, our tribe. Not sometimes, some of us belongs to Mandaya tribe, for example. Others belongs to Manubu, Bagubu, Igorot, or Tagalog. No? So we have different tribal affiliation. So this is the social concept. Or another thing, social concept is based on our origin, where we come from, what barangay we belong, or what country we belong. For example, we are Filipinos because we are in the Philippines. They are Americans because they are in America. They are Japanese because they are in Japan, for example. How about barangay? Kana sila barangay 30-C, for example. Barangay, iba po na sila. So, where we belong, our origin becomes now part of our self. So, this is what the study of Marcel is telling us. Particular concept is identified as the person. Kay kwa man gud siya, French man gud siya. So, person ni ang iyahang person ang iyahang term, but this is still the same with identity. This is still the same self, only named differently because of his language. Now the other one, according to Marcel, is moi, no, moi, the basic identity. What is the basic identity? For example, the physical appearance, the color of our skin. Some of us are fair, some of us are black, some of us are yellow, some of us are having rough skin, others smooth skin. Okay? Or the the way we speak. Some people are rough, some people are soft spoken. These are basic identity. Now, nganong appeal man na siya, sir? Take note, when people will identify us, they will add something to us. For example, if one is looking for Edgar, who is Edgar that you are looking? Edgar, katong tangkad good na bata, you see, the tangkad, the tall, that is a basic identity of Edgar. While there will be, or there must be another Edgar, but not literally tall, maybe short. Our physical appearance becomes our basic identity, part of ourself, part of ourself. Or kung mataba ka, for example, chubby ka, for example, people will identify you on that particular body build. Body build. Or payat ka, for example, so the same thing will happen. So this is according to Marcel. And he named it personi and moi. But in the study of other thinkers, okay, this is the same with personality. The same with personality, that according to the study of Mead and Vygotsky, they believe that the persona moi that Marcel is talking is the same with personality. And personality is the same with self. And the self is identified in terms of behavior, in terms of social concept, in terms of basic identity. So these are the same concept, only termed differently by different thinkers, philosophers, that satisfies their own studies. Okay? Don't be confused with the terms because they mean the same thing. Now, according to Mead and Vygotsky, we'll continue, they say that the way that human persons develop is the use of language acquisition and interaction with others. So what does it mean? The development of ourself in the world, the development of the self facing the different culture in the world is helping us to learn language. That is why we can notice that some people are very gifted in languages. They can speak different languages, dialects. Why? Because they interact with other people. The more interaction, the more possibilities of acquisition of language. But if there is limited of interaction of language or interaction with other people, then technically there will be also limitation of acquisition of language. Okay, language. For example, in your own society, in your own barangay, kung namoy silingan nga Cebuano, namoy silingan nga Tagalog, you've noticed kung mag-istorya mo sa Tagalog, mukalit lang mo ka Tagalog. Feeling na po mo Tagalog. Kaya ang Tagalog kay Sabol Bisaya. Meaning to say, this is the acquisition of language. And the more you do it, the more you experience it, the more you become knowledgeable of it. So this is the development of your personality. Okay? That's according to the study of Mead and Vygotsky. But take note, personality, according to Vygotsky and Mead, is the same with Personi and Moy by Marcel. And this is also the same with what other thinkers mention about identity, behavior, self, human person. They're all the same. They're talking the same thing. The self, me. Okay? Question. Mira Fuentes, Miss Mira Fuentes, Mr. Mira Fuentes, na ay pangutana?
Da, sir.
Wala. Okay, wala pangutana. How about other people? Wala pangutana?
Wala, sir.
Siza, na kay pangutana, Siza?
Wala na, sir.
Wala na. Okay, so let us continue. Let us continue. Okay. Okay. After knowing the what is this? The influence of society to the development of the self. Always remember that in the society belongs our own family. And take note also that and for that matter, all of us belongs to a certain family. Although the concept of family differs from one culture to another. Lahi-lahi ang understanding ng mga tao about about family. Nevertheless, each of us has a certain degree of experience of family. And the family influenced the development of the self when we were still young. Okay? So, what does this means? We have here, kalihog daw ko o basa. Kinsa may pwede mo basa? Raven Clark. Kalihog ko, basa ani Raven Clark. Kung siya nakasulat diya, Raven.
7 families. The kind of family that we are born in, the resources available to us, spiritual, economic, political, in the kind of development that we will have, education, training. The family initiates a person to become that serves as the basis for this person's progress.
Okay, thank you. Thank you sa pagbasa. Okay, the last line is very important. The family initiates a person to become that serves as the basis of this person's progress. So it is the responsibility of the family. It is the responsibility of the family to initiate the learning process of the person. The development of the self belongs first and foremost to the duty of the family. Of course, in the family, it's our parents or anybody who runs the family that we are in. And there are three factors that are very important. One is spiritual, the other one is economic, and the other one is political. Now, these three are very important because the basic concept of these three factors becomes our foundation of understanding of this as we grow and as we mature. So what are these three? Let us start with spiritual. What is spiritual uh, means as far as the family is concerned in influencing our self? Genre. Masama, what do you think about this spiritual genre? Anything that comes to your mind? Sige.
Spiritual beliefs, sir, or
Sige, spiritual belief. Ano pa?
Sir, ako, sir.
Sige, ang katong kay spiritual belief. Sige, kung nga kinsa man
sir.
a soul. Okay, what do you mean by soul? Sige daw. Okay, sige, soul. Ato lang i-note there is soul. Peter Paul.
Yes, sir.
Yes, anything comes to your mind?
Ako gyapon, sir.
Ay, ikaw itong nagsulti kanina? Sorry. Abigail. Abigail.
Kauban mo sa pagtuo, ano.
Okay, kauban nimo sa pagtuo. Okay. Yes, thank you. What else?
Sacred beliefs yun.
Okay, belief. Okay.
Sacred belief.
Okay, sacred belief. Okay. Okay, basically, when we speak about spiritual, it's pertaining to belief or sacred belief, as you mentioned. But take note that when we were young, whether we like it or not, it is the responsibility of our parents or our family, for that matter. We learn our religion. Again, it is their responsibility, referring to our parents or our family, to learn our religion. Because it is them who taught us what is our religion. Okay, for example, if your family is Catholic, of course, you become Catholic. You learn the ways of the Catholic. Or, for example, if your family is Muslim, then you will learn the ways of Islam, and so on and so forth. So, whether we like it or not, we are not free in that matter. We learn this spiritual concept, first and foremost, our religion. And from there, we developed our concept of faith. The way we worship, the way we serve, the way we pray. So this is basically influencing us as we grow in the context of our own family. Very crucial, because not all families are religious, for example. There are some families who doesn't exercise any spiritual activities in their house. They don't pray, they don't go to church on Sundays or on Fridays to the mosque, or on Saturdays to the temples, whatever you call it. They don't have those activities. So definitely, the child grows in this particular environment will also develop the concept of this non-religious activity that becomes part of his or her self. Okay? So everything starts from the family. Okay, next, economics. How about economics? What does this mean? Okay.
Sir,
Yes, Palihog Claresa.
ano sir, economics sir is kanang ano sir, learn to write, to
Okay.
read, and
To
also
write, to read.
to
Okay.
count sir.
To count. Okay, you will learn it in the early stage, no? Our parents or our aunties, our kuyas would teach us how to do the counting. Yes, it's true. What else?
Ano sir,
Sir,
ang sige.
Yes, Jade. Jade.
economic goods, sir, or social communication.
Okay, economic, good, social,
Such as-
communication.
yeah.
What else?
Yan lang, sir.
Okay, siguro economics, good.
Yes.
Okay,
Interact.
Yes,
Okay,
for interactions.
yes, sige. Sige daw, dungagi pa. Napay ka dungag?
Interact with the value or
Yes, Jean. Yes, Jean.
production,
Okay, production.
um,
Okay.
social science that studies how people interact with value.
Yes. Okay, dili lang kay klaro ang connection ni Jean. Pero ang akong nakuha dito is kanang value, no, value. Of course, sa economics, there are so many things involved there, no?
Studies how people interact with value, and particularly production.
Values.
Yes. Values, pwede ang values, because values affects the way we understand the situation of our income, our income in the family, our economic status in the family, it affects our values. Nakatong gi-mention ganina po sa inyong classmate na about goods, economic goods. Well, our economic situation also influence the way we acquire economic goods. Scarcity of money, of course, there are scarcity also of economic goods. Okay? If there are extra money, maybe extra economic goods will come into the family. So these are also part of the economics. But basically, before those things happen, we'll start from the very basic that the economic condition of the family affects our self-development. Affects our self-development. This, the concept of rich economic condition will come in. The poor economic condition, the scarcity of goods will come in. So the self will be affected by this. How? Because we basically learn from the family valuing, okay, the word value, valuing what our parents can bring us or can bring in into the family in terms of economic condition. Good food, toys, material things that are necessary in the house, if the economic condition of the family allows it. But if the economic condition of the family does not allow it, of course, it also affects the self. Then another thing also in the economics, we learn also the basic principle of budgeting, budgeting our own money. If you could still remember when you were in your elementary, tagaan mo baon sa inyong parents. So you have to budget the baon na ipalit nimo sa imuhang recess sa buntag, palit nimo og sa recess sa hapon o kuan pagpamasahe, things like that. No? So the basic budgeting or suguon ka for example, mamalingki, mamalit og grocery for example or papaliton lang kag suka sa tindahan. Ikaw magpalit, tagaan ka og 2 pesos budgeton nimo na mo palit kag bitsin, palit kag suka, palit kag mantika sa 2 pesos. So we learn it in the family how we budget the small amount of money or how we budget a bigger amount of money. And another thing also we learn in the family the principle of savings. I do not know if you have the experience in the family na magbuhat ag alkansya. Tuluan ta sa ato ang parents or kuyas or atis or lulas or lulos how to save money. It's either sa kawayan, sa lubi, or any empty bottle, limpyuhan siya, butangan siya og sinsilyo. Sometimes so funny, pangwao na to, kay ihapon, ibalik na pog sulod. Or wapagay na puno, buako na siya. So these are things, very simple things that we learn in the family that later on becomes a part of ourself in terms of disciplining our income or the way we use of our income in the future. And this we learn it in the family. Apart from those we mentioned kanina about the economic condition of the family. Okay? Because this also affects the self development. It could be positively or it could be negatively. This will just be manifested in our personality later on as we grow, as we mature. Okay. Now another thing is political that influence the development of the self in the context of our own family. So what is this political thing means?
Relating to government.
Government.
Okay, relating to government. Sige daw.
Leader, sir. Leader.
Okay, government, leader. Okay, sige. Ato
Laws,
dang
sir, mga
ato dang
laws.
isa-isa. Yes, ano sa to?
Balaod, sir.
Okay, balaod. Sige, ato dang tan-aw ng tulo ka buok. Magsugod ta sa balaod. Sige, tell us about the balaod law. So, unsa man na siya sa family?
About what is right and wrong, sir. Sa dili angay buhaton ug siya angay.
Okay, what is right and what is wrong? Who will tell us this in the family?
President, father.
Father.
Okay, the
Mama o
parents.
papa.
Parents. It's either the papa or the mama, depending on how they exercise their political leadership in the family. No? Na yun sila leadership diya sa family. Mo mention po sa inyong classmate, leader. Okay. Concept of leadership in the family develops naturally because we experience it from our parents. Yung motong law, mga balaod, na mga imposition of laws in the form of discipline in the family. And this is given to us by our parents. Our parents. Okay? That later on, this will be applicable also in the bigger context in the government. Because more or less they are the same. Pag abot na ka sa government, one family lang yapon na siya. The government will impose laws. Okay? Discipline. Leadership. Mo exercise sila. So, these things starts inside the family. Okay? Now, even in the siblings, for example, sa mga siblings, kung daghan mong magsuon, they also exercise leadership. In the absence of the parents, of course, the eldest, ang kinamagulangan, will become the authority, will become the leader in the family. Why? Because the parents handed the authority to the eldest or anybody who will stand as the guardian in the family in the absence of the parents. Okay? So, pasunod-sunod na siya hangtod sa pinaka-last member of the family, the kinamanghuran. Okay? Siya tanan ang musunod. But not necessarily all the time because sometimes ang kinamanghuran mo ay leader. Mag-leader sa kabuang. You see, these things we learn it naturally in the family. That is why in your groups of friends, you've noticed that some of your friends are good leaders. Why? Because they develop their natural leadership within the context of their family. Maybe they are trusted by their parents to do things, to lead the siblings in their absence. So they develop the sense of responsibility. That later on, as we grow older, as we mature, we are already having the knowledge, mga knowledge about leadership, starting from our families. In fact, so funny, sometimes children in the house, magbuto-buto na sila. Na sila yung mga votation. O kinsa man ang modapig kay papa, modapig kay mama. So we can choose. We exercise our freedom of choosing. So kung butang nimo na siya sa government, election. We have already a sense of electoral rights in the family. Magbuto-buto si papa ako, si mama ako. Or the understanding of hero in the family. Diba? When we were still in the elementary, our teachers would ask us, who is your hero? Some of us would say, my father. Some of us would say, my mother. So the concept of hero now is already associated to leadership. Someone who is powerful, someone who is protecting, someone who is leading, someone who is providing. So hero. So this is a very simple development of the concept of politics starting within the family that later on develops in a very dynamic way as we grow and mature in the context of the society. Okay? So spiritual, economic, and political factors are very strong influence to the development of the self within the context of the family. Because we, at one point of our life, you and I will go through or will pass through the passage of maturity, passage of development. And these things are happening starting in our own families. Okay? Mo-increase na siya later on. Mag-increase siya later on. And part of that also, the family is responsible in providing us education and providing us basic training. So what are these things? These are the formal and non-formal education that you and I acquire in the family. So when we say training, these are non-formal education that we learn inside the house. Cleaning the house, for example, washing our clothes, washing the dishes, cooking, or doing things inside the house, helping our parents, helping our elders, helping our siblings, no? Doing things inside the house. These are basically trainings that later on uh, we develop this as a skill, develop this as a skill that becomes part of our self as we grow and as we mature. Okay? For example, kadang mag-learn of cooking. No? I don't know if you're still learning it today, but during my time, all of us in the family should learn how to cook rice. First, how to cook rice. We don't have rice cooker. No? We don't have rice cooker in the past. So we must learn how to cook rice in a natural way, the way we prepare rice in the province. Then later on, you will be taught how to prepare viand. Magluto na kag sudan. Maglungag bag itlog, magprito bag isda, or magtinula. Then later on, it will become part of your day-to-day activity. Or you will learn how to clean the house. Wala may mga electric sa una, so all we have to do is do it manually. Maglampaso, magtrapo, things like that.
Ah?
Or maghakot og tubig. Maghakot og tubig.
Offline man
Wala
siya.
may gripo. Wala may
Saan man
gripo
niya pag saan ako pag-chat na
in the
offline man siya, di man
house.
siya
So,
kabasaan ni.
bomba. So, we have to collect water
Oh.
from the well. No? So, we have to collect it. Or, mangahoy. Wala may electric stove sa balay. So, we have to collect firewood. So, these are training. These are training. Ano natawag man siyang training? Because the more you experience these things, the more you appreciate responsibility. The more you learn to appreciate responsibility later on. Why? Because this is part of accepting my responsibility. If you can do this responsibility inside the house, so later on, no question that you cannot do other responsibility also. That is why psychologists would tell us you can observe children, their behavior, in their behavior, especially the children that are exposed to simple tasks in the house. When they grow, they are very responsible children. But those children who never had the experience of doing simple tasks in the house, when they grow, they're very hard-headed. They're very, very hard-headed and very difficult to handle. It may not be all, but majority. Majority. So you can observe this. You can observe this in your own family. For example, if naamoy mga nephews, naamoy mga nieces, or sa inyong neighborhood, you can observe. You can observe them. Okay? I'm not saying that they are negative. I'm not saying that they are positive. I'm only simply saying that these are the natural tendency that influence our self that later on will manifest something. It could be positive, it could be negative. It can be positive, negative later on. Okay? Because we are talking about how the influence of the family to the development of the self. So that is pertaining to training. Training. How about education? Education is the formal education that we are talking about. Our family is responsible of educating us. That is why when we were young, responsibility yun na ng mama nato, dalon ta sa eskwelahan, bahalag maghilak ka din na the whole day, basta naa ka sa eskwelahan. That later on, you will learn how to enjoy life in the school. Kinder, grade 1, hantod, magsige na lang kag atong eskwelahan because you miss your classmates or your friends in the school. But it is the responsibility of our parents. Kinsa man the parents mingon, hulata lang na siya kung kanosa sa ganahan mi eskwela. No. Ang parents mo decide na at this age you will be in the school. Why? Because it is part of the process of the development of the self. And we learn things in it outside the house. We learn things outside the house. Okay? Question? Wala. Okay, here in the other
Sir, excuse me, sir.
yes, palihog. Philip.
Sir, how about corruption, sir? Asa na siya na-develop, sir?
Oh, corruption, very good point. Corruption, we also learn this indirectly. Take note of the word indirectly in one way or another in the family. In the family. Ganong indirectly man? Because at young age, we don't understand it is already corruption. But later on, we'll realize that form that is a corruption. I'll give you an example, basic example. Kana ganing, if your parents are very competitive, uy, paningkamot jud ka ha dito sa klase niya, dapat ikaw jud number 1. Ikaw jud ang top 1. Okay? Panan jud ang anak na top 1. Luoy daw kay ang bata, masig katulgo na pa estadihon gyapon kay exam ugma, no? Kay tagaan siya reward if siya ang top 1. Ganong nahimo man na siyang form of corruption. Nahimo siyang form of corruption because you are forcing the child to be the top 1. Wala nimo na-appreciate ang initiative sa child to enjoy the learning process. But you manipulated the learning process of the child. Because maybe in your time, wala ka na top 1 and you want your child to be the top 1 now. Kaya wala man ka na top 1 before. That's an example. Indirectly, anong indirectly siya? Again, because the child will not understand.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Or another thing, kanang suguon ang bata. Nya kay di man masugo ang bata kay masig dulag ML. Papalit dito bitsin dong imuha na ng sinsilyo. Pero nahimo man siyang form of corruption. Because unconsciously the child will develop the understanding kung suguon day ko, bayaran ko. Which is wrong. Because in the family, you don't need to be paid because you are part of the family. It is your responsibility. It is the duty and responsibility of the parents na taga-suguon ka. And it is also your duty and responsibility as a child to obey the sugo of your parents. No pay. Naka yung point? Kaya later on, people will do things because they are paid. That's indirectly. And many more things, no, in the family that sometimes dili na to makita siya there and then corruption dahil siya, but later on na siya mamahimong corruption. Muna miingon ang mga parents pag madagko ng mga anak, sus kung kabalo pa lang ko na ingani dahil kapag kadako may paggituok na lang ka sa una. Well, of course, when they were young, the parents unconsciously
Santa Cruz, Mama.
na kahibalo na mo
Santa Cruz pa.
Mahitabo. Kaya very crucial ang influence ng family sa development of self. Very crucial. So, thank you. Very good points about the corruption. The corruption starts there. Indirectly, because it is not the intention of the parents. Unless if it is really the intention of the parents na tudluan ang mga anak at tumo dito dong kay pangawat mo dong, that's something else. That's something else. Majority wise, no parents will teach their children to do that. But there are some cases that parents will teach their children to do this. The children do not understand, but they will just obey because the parents is telling them. Kana directly yun na siya kay intentionally done by the parents. Katong kaganina indirectly to siya. Tapos ka ng bata magsighilak para mohilom tagaan og cellphone, which is very crucial. At young age tagaan nimo siyang cellphone, the person or the child will not learn how to interact. Ngano man na prison siya sa cellphone. That is corruption. You deprive the child of enjoying the natural interaction. Okay? Sige. Napay pangutana? Before we'll continue, hapit na ba yung time? Wala na? Sige. We'll continue with gender and the self. So another crucial thing in the influence, in the context of the family, as the influence of the family to the development of the self is concerned is gender. Okay, gender. Sa daning gender. Basically, gender, traditional understanding is only female and male. Why traditionally? Because in the past, this is the only concept of the society. Katang gisulti ni Marcel ganina, so sa concepts, social concept, female and male. In the family, it's to identify that the child is male and the child is female. But what happened? What happened was the development of the advancement of the society. There is what we call gender is one of those points of the self that is subject to alteration and change and development. The word is alteration and change. Development is more positive. Alteration and change sometimes denotes negative concept. Why? Because it changes the natural tendency. Natural tendency. That is why this issue becomes very sensitive, especially nowadays among LGBTQ++. Because the female and male concept now drastically change. Naanay homosexual, naanay bisexual, naanay, of course, heterosexual is there already, naanay queer and other plus. No? Kaya, nasa alteration, nasa change, nasa development. Okay? Now, and this, why this is very crucial in the family? Because sometimes in the family, it is the family that motivated the child to change. For example, if wala sila anak na lalaki, ang inang anak na babae himuon nilang lalaki. Or vice versa, wala sila anak na lalaki na babae, ang anak nilang lalaki himuon nilang babae. So these things will reinforce to the development of the self. Why? Because the child has now yet proper understanding of the self. So therefore, he will or she will accept whatever influence given to him or to her by the family. Plus, when the child interacts with other people in the society, that's also another matter. Kaya crucial ang sa family. Crucial siya sa family. I am not saying it is negative. I am not saying it is positive. I'm only simply saying that this is the possibilities of the development of the self within the family context. Family context. That is why in the society today, you've noticed, if you can observe, there are these people around us, homosexual, bisexual, and other form of gender orientation. Okay? We'll continue. Gender, sociologists and psychologists defines as it's either of the two sexes, male or female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological. Kasi pasabot niya ni. In the context of understanding of the female and male, biologically, duha ra gyud na sila. Why? Because female is always associated to uterus. Male is associated to testosterone. And you cannot change it because that's the natural physiological makeup of your body. Whether you like it or not, even if you will undergo medical treatment or surgery, still ang male na himuong female wala gyapon sa uterus. Ang female na himuong male wala gyapon sa testosterone. Okay? It's because that is biological. However, in the social reference, katong gimension nato ganina nga social concept, social reference will change. Why? Because you will be identified according to your behavior, according to your identity, according to your self.
Physical appearance.
Yes, physical appearance, for example. The society now will say, tumboy na siya, tanawa mo lihok. Abayot na siya, tanawa na siya mo lihok. Tanawa sa may istorya. So these are the influence of the society now to the development of the self as far as the gender is concerned. Now, for example, if the individual is not yet settled in his identity, then consciously, he or she will accept what the society is influencing him or her. But if the individual is already settled in his identity, starting from the family context, then whatever the influence of the society will not influence the individual. Because the person is already settled. Mo nang mangutana mo or wonder mo or namoy kaila, namoy na-obserbara, namoy na-experience. Katong elementary nga, pretty man, lakiha, pag abot na mo ka high school, ni kalitra mag ka-sexy. Why? Because the self develops, still developing. Wala pa siya naabot sa iyahang sense of maturity. Nya ang pangutana, when we reach maturity, that's another question, which is very difficult to answer because that is too personal. That's too personal. Okay? Now, the term referring to gender is also used more broadly to denote a range of identities that does not correspond to established ideas of male and female. So this is what we are saying on the sensitive issue of the LGBTQ++. Regardless of their physical, regardless of their physiological makeup, male or female, no. It is already how they identify themselves according to their gender and sexual orientation. Okay? Question.
Wala, sir.
Walay pangutana or anything you would
Answer.
like to be clarified?
Wala, sir.
Okay? So that those I mentioned make sense to us people? Okay. So you can go over with the discussion using the materials because those I discussed are already in the LMS. You can access the material in the LMS. Na ako'y new material gibutang sa LMS and another activity in the LMS. You can do that. Then tomorrow is Saturday. We still have the virtual conference. Then tomorrow I'll give you the final instruction of what will happen to our activities. And this is now the chance of those who are very eager to 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 pass their activity. Tomorrow you will know what you will do with your activities.
Ay, sir.
Yes.
Parang pwede ka mangayog ano sa imong subject, sir, kay bago lang gimo akong LMS, kaganina lang.
Unsay apelyido nimo kay ato ang dungag dito? You are
Kabal Quinto, sir.
Kabalkinto. Sige, ato ang kuno na Kabal
Quinto.
Kuan man kano B? Sige, atang iko
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, what else? Yes.
Sir,
Yes.
sa LMS lang. Sa LMS na mo ikuan ugma, sir.
Dili mag-Zoom meeting ta. Akong pasabot, bisitaha ang LMS kanay bagong materials dito, napay bagong activities. Nya mag-meet gyapon ta sa virtual conference tomorrow, then tagantang mo final instruction unsa atong buhaton sa inyo activities. So, hoping
Oras ugma, sir.
ay people, ang ato bayang oras permanente 6 to 7, dili gyud na sa mausab.
Okay, sir. Sige, sir. Thank you, sir.
Di na sa mausab 6 to 7 gyud na siya.
Andun sa bado dahil, sir.
Hantod sa bado man atong klase Monday, hantod Saturday.
Sir, kanta ipasa sir. Ang activity sir.
Wadyo ka namin na junary ba? Ugma lagi hulata ang instruction. Yes, Joseph.
Sir, nalang ko suggestion, sir, ba?
Basta may suggestion nimo.
Sir, di ba kay ang itong activity, dili man naman siya i-save sa LMS kay sa papel ra nimo gipasulat.
Yes.
Ang akong ano, sir, is if kolektahon nimo gapo siguro, sir, ibutang sa folder para dili siya masagol-sagol sa laing section.
Pwede po. Pero ugma, may bala na to unsa ang atong buhatan ugma sa inyong activity. Ang importante, ang atong activities, gibuhat na to. Gibuhat na to. Kay basig mingon dayon ko nga picture na. Ipasa dayon sa kuha karon. Di na dayon imong activities. Imagine, gitagaan mo 1 week to complete the activity.
Pero, sir,
Katong imuhang suggestion na ibutang sa folder, time will come kay basig imo na to siyang parts atong portfolio.
Sige sir, thank you sir.
Remember, this is understanding the self. So there are other activities that are more personal. Tanawa na. Very good to siya. Ato tong in-note. Okay.
Sir, ako sir, wala gyapon sir.
Wala ay version nga naa naman dito. Grabe naman sa pa man ako buhaton oy. Ako yung manas yung
Dashboard yun na sir, nag-open ko sa computer sir, wala gyapon sir. Pangita na ako sir.
ay nako. Sa mo na akong buhaton kay naa naman gyud dito di man gyud na malalis kay ako man gyud nagbutang dito. Sige, ako na po nang inote imong pangalan diri kay para masatisfy gyud ang imuhang self. Kay basig ang akong influence mamali. Iyatan. Sige, atong ibutang diri. Di gyapon kayatan no. Sige.
Oh,
Sige.
pero lima na ka subject sir.
Sige,
Di
ako
ka sa
na.
lagi sir kato sa kwan. Mo tawag ako.
Sige, akong i-check,
Sa
akong i-check.
sir, wala man sir, wala mo boss na G1 na subject sir.
Dili mo pod good G1 imong pangitao. Dili mo pod good G1 imong pangitao. Ang pangitao mo gud nimo dito, UTS. Di ba UTS? Ako ganito gipicturean.
Sir, UTS gyapon sir, wala gyapon sir.
Ay, abot ang saon na siya. Pangutana na lang sa moderator. Sa moderator sa LMS. Kailan ka no, kang Sir Vincent, Joe Vincent,
Dito ko, sir,
pangutana,
kagin,
pangutana sa iya.
Vincent ka bro.
Pangutana dito, nganong di jud ka makakita sa ato ang LMS. Okay, that is mystery. Ato jud ang isolve na mystery na. Kaya dugay na gud ka nako na enroll sa LMS. Anyway, ako gyapong i-check for the benefit of rechecking and to be fair with you kay basit jud og wala lang jud ko dai namali lang po ko tanaw. Okay? So tomorrow you will know the result. Okay? Sige, thank you for joining the conference this evening and see you tomorrow people. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
See you tomorrow, sir.
Makauga og utok dyan ning online class. Nababuang na ako. Okay, I just wanna say you, umana ang mo ang understanding the self na subject, and I just wanna say to you na thank you sa inyo ha guys. 7:03 PM na, September 10, 2021. Mwah, I love you so much mga kapinsan. Ug morning ato ang Marvin Rey vlog, akong screen record ang ang online class. By the way, thank you for watching. I love you so much guys. Sana hindi kayo magsawa sa akin sa panonood dito sa aking Marvin Rey vlog. I love you so much. Thank you.